Hello, and welcome back to another episode of I Am NAMI Kansas, a mental health podcast by Kansans for Kansans. Today, we're going to be talking about the criminal justice system and how it intersects with mental health. We'll talk more in depth about what that looks like, but long story short, there's a big mental health problem within jails and prisons across the state and across the country as a whole. To talk about this issue, we'll first be conversing with our friend Itzel, another NAMI Kansas employee out in Western Kansas that works with our Assisted Outpatient Treatment program. Then we'll be talking with Dr. Brittany Harmes, another NAMI Kansas staff member who works with the Justice Involved Person Project. Following that, we'll be talking with Captain Mark French, who works at the Reno County Jail. And then we'll end with Christa Redd, a Reno County Jail resident who is going to share her story with us. So come along with this journey with us, and I hope you learned something from this podcast. All right, so we're back again with Itzel. Itzel, thank you for joining us again today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so today we're here to talk about AOT. So my first question is, what is AOT?
That's a very interesting question. AOT stands for Assisted Outpatient Treatment, and this is a practice of providing community-based mental health treatment under civil court commitment. So sometimes it gets a little confusing. So AOT, or Assisted Outpatient Treatment, happens after a person receives an outpatient treatment order coming out of the state hospital, and they're able to be placed into this program. And this is done as a means to motivate an adult with a mental illness who struggles with voluntary treatment adherence to fully engage with their treatment plan. So this is oftentimes that person that gets stuck in what we call the revolving door. The revolving door being it's a person that maybe won't go to their appointments, won't adhere to medication. They might be going to the state hospital often or might be incarcerated often. And this AOT tries its best to stop that revolving door. And it also focuses the attention on treatment providers, to work diligently with the person to keep them engaged in effective treatment. So when a person is part of AOT, they have a treatment team or a wraparound team working with them to help ensure that they stick to the treatment plan, that it's working for them, and they're actually seeing results.
Okay, and you said coming out of state hospitals, and you mentioned jails and stuff before too. Do they have to go to the hospital first to get that order, or can they go to like a jail and get that order?
So it's different in every state, but here in Kansas, a person would have to be coming out of the state hospital in order to receive that order, and that's because of the Kansas statute. Currently in legislation, we're working very hard on changing that. But as of now, yes, a person would have to be coming out of the state hospital in order to receive this treatment.
Okay, so we talked about AOT. How about an AOT program? Is that different? Is that the same thing? How would you define that?
So I always all the same under the same umbrella. So an AOT program is assisted outpatient treatment, or AOT, is this concept of a civil court commitment. And an AOT program is just them, I guess, doing the work within the program. So what you see in AOT program is a community mental health center and their local courts working together to ensure this person is receiving the correct treatment. And this involves just a wraparound team, which could be a therapist, a case manager, a peer support specialist, a medications provider, the judge, maybe the county attorney, any like the legal assistant to the judge. So it just depends. So within an AOT program, it's this organized effort to keep that person out of going back to the state hospital. So once a person is placed on that AOT order, then they start receiving all these wraparound services to ensure that they don't fall back into the same cycle. And the kind of like the main idea of an AOT program is to motivate a person to actually follow through with their treatment. Like, you should be going to therapy, you should be seeing your case manager, you should be taking your medication, in order for them to not fall back on maybe committing some sort of crime that could lead them into getting into jail, or having some sort of crisis that could lead them into going back into the state hospital.
Okay, awesome. So who is AOT for? Like, who's it supposed to help?
So AOT primarily helps those individuals with severe mental illness, and you could think of like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder. Sometimes we have major depressive disorder with psychotic features, and so it's the individuals that tend to not to be fully aware that they might have some sort of diagnosis. And oftentimes we call this unawareness or lack of awareness agnosognosia. And that's one of the fun things to learn whenever you work in the AOT realm is how to pronounce agnosognosia. And agnosognosia again is that lack of awareness. So these individuals tend to be that the people that have these more severe diagnoses, or they have that lack of awareness, and being able to, so within AOT, and depending on your AOT program, how it's structured locally, you see a judge once a month. And so oftentimes a case manager or peer support specialist will work with this individual to remind them like, hey, we have that court docket next Monday. You should really be there. And this is why you should be there. And while they're in the court docket is really focusing on motivating this individual, like, hey, you're doing great. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. But also providing that validation of like, oh, it's awesome that you're taking your medication. It's awesome that you're actually going to therapy, seeing your case manager and such. So it's that population that sometimes tends to be labeled as hard to work with. And AOT really focuses on providing those wraparound services to make sure that they're engaged and they're actively working towards their mental health recovery.
So you just kind of cover a little bit of how it works. Like you have the caseworker and stuff. What happens if somebody doesn't comply with the order and they don't do the treatment they need to do?
So oftentimes the treatment team will try their best to ensure that a person stays on track as most as possible. So trying their best to have them go to their appointments, to meet with the case manager and such. If this means they have to be providing back and forth transportation, they do that. But if they don't, it goes back to the judge. So the judge during the court docket every month could then decide if something needs to be shifted. So if something isn't working, like the person isn't medication compliant or the person isn't going to therapy, is really sitting down and having that conversation of, so what is going on? What's stopping you from going to your appointments? What's stopping you from taking your medication? And oftentimes, if the rapport is good between the AOT participant and the judge, then the person might open up like, hey, it's because I'm having these issues at home, or I don't like my therapist. My medication makes me feel fuzzy, whatever it could be. And that active communication is what then allows the treatment team to adapt. Like, okay, let's change, let's look for a new therapist, let's look for new medication. But if it happens to be that after that conversation and that kind of like that shift in the treatment they're receiving, if they're still not being compliant, then it comes down to deciding between the treatment team and the judge if this person should be committed back into the mental health hospital. And that is like the last thing that they want to get to with noncompliance. First, they really want to to help the person to the best of their ability to actually comply with the order and with their treatment plan.
All right, so here's the big question. So we're talking about a court order treatment. People often have really strong opinions about such things. So how about we ask a big question here, which is how effective is it? Is it effective at all?
So that's that could be a complicated question, but typically, individuals who benefit of AOT already have this history of inconsistent engagement. They have a history of maybe repeated incarceration, repeatedly going into the state hospital. So the way that they are kind of like that, what scales that effectiveness is if a person starts engaging into their treatment. So this means that you see a person before AOT, they're really not med compliant. They never go to their therapist. They don't like communicating with the case manager. It's just, it's them against the world, really. They feel like they're not receiving that help or that could help them, steal forward. So what happens with AOT is that all of a sudden, this is a person that maybe has never been heard before, or they feel like their opinion doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, they have this wraparound team that is concerned for how their treatment is going. They're concerned to see if how they're feeling, what their feelings are, if how medication is making them feel. And this is also their mental health team, but as well as a judge. And oftentimes, a judge has this big in most society, judges have that black robe effect, which means that, their opinion tends to be placed a little bit higher than other people's opinions. So in AOT, we have, it's not a regular court docket. We have them in like a conference room setting, and you have the judge sitting in front of the table, and you have the AOT participant right next to them, and conversations are happening. So the effectiveness of AOT lies in all of a sudden a person that maybe wasn't being heard, or they just felt lost. They felt like they weren't receiving the correct motivation to continue. All of a sudden, they have this wraparound team and this judge that sits down with them once a month, wants to hear about how their life is going. They want to hear about what is affecting their life. They want to hear about how medication is making them feel. They're celebrating their successes. So all of a sudden, these individuals have this team that's motivating them to continue on the right path, as well as validating their concerns. They're validating them not feeling well without medication. They're validating them for having open feelings. And for a lot of the individuals in AOT programs, this is the first time they receive any form of motivation and validation. And that's really what spearheads the program. Like you have these wraparound services of people that care and people that want to see you succeed. And that's really where the effectiveness lies, is that communication and those relationships.
So it's not like a punishment. It's not a way of forgetting about people, but it's a way of trying to acknowledge gaps that exist in the healthcare system and fill those gaps so we can avoid having these individuals constantly be going back to jail and hospitals and all that.
Definitely. So oftentimes it's scary to think, oh my gosh, I have to go to court. I received this order. What's going to happen? And we have that a lot with that first court docket you're going to. You might be nervous as a participant, like, oh no, I have to sit in front of a judge. I received this letter from the county saying I have to report to this court. I have to engage in all these treatments, which could be intimidating and really scary for an individual, especially if they have a significant diagnosis. And AOT really narrows it down into, this isn't scary. This is us having a conversation. This is us trying to help you with your recovery. And I think that is truly what changes the narrative. Like, court doesn't have to be scary. It's not a bad thing. Court could be beneficial for you. It could change your life. And that's what we see openly with our AOT programs.
Have there been any studies or anything done on AOT?
Yes, definitely. So if you go to the treatmentadvocacycenter.org, they have a resource library that's filled with a lot of very good information in regards to AOT. And they have done reports and studies throughout the nation. It's not just Kansas. You see this often in New York, and there's programs in Ohio. They even have this really cool interactive map on their website where you could click where there's different active AOT programs in the country. And that's always my first go-to when recommendation to AOT facts and reports and researches, because they have done it all and they're really great advocates for AOT, and their resource library is a lifesaver when it comes to trying to find more information about AOT.
Awesome. So where in Kansas are there AOT programs at?
So right now, we have a SAMHSA grant that has allowed Kansas to spearhead a couple of pilot sites. And we have, so under that pilot program or that SAMHSA grant, we have Cowley County, which is Fort County Mental Health Center. We have Douglas, Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center. We have Ellis, which is High Plains Mental Health Center. Ford, which is Compass Behavioral Health, and Riley, which is Pawnee Mental Health Services. So those 5 counties are under that main SAMHSA grant. They're kind of spread out throughout the state, which helps with there's some rural areas as well as a little bit more urban. And then we also have Sumner County, which they're under just a different grant, and it's Sumner Mental Health Center. So we have those counties that fall underneath that SAMHSA grant that we have been working with. But then we also have some counties that have already established AOT. So we have that in Johnson County, and we have that in Wyandotte County, and then as well as Sedgwick County. So there's AOT is growing. It's hopefully growing fast in the state of Kansas, which is really exciting.
All right, so you said that Kansas is doing this pilot project and that it's quickly growing. Is there anything happening right now, legislative-wise, that deals with AOT at all?
Yeah, and it's really exciting. So right now we have House Bill 2353, which the amendments to that House bill are to the original statute, and it would really benefit AOT as well as mental health in general. And in NAMI Kansas, and our NAMI Kansas advocates have been advocating for this House bill, and we are hoping it's had a great review in the House, and it's had a great review in the Senate. So we're hoping it continues to do great throughout its journey.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to learn more about HB 2353, you can read the bill text on the Kansas Legislature's website. It's kind of hard to condense and explain here, but it's out there, and you're more than free to go look it up. So Itzel, thank you so much for coming on here today and talking with us about AOT. I also hope to see more from you and from other, people involved with AOT in the future, because it seems like a really beneficial option for some people here in the state of Kansas who might struggle with getting health care.
Definitely. And I think right now AOT is expanding, and a lot of different areas are really looking into the research and seeing the benefits of AOT. So I'm hoping that we are eventually able to spread to more counties in the state. I know some of our counties are more rural and they're smaller, but it benefits really anybody, especially that population with significant mental illness. So it's really exciting to see AOT grow in the state of Kansas, and I'm hoping it continues to do so.
Yeah, I hope it expands too. So, Itzel, thank you so much for coming on today. Today, we are here with Dr. Brittany Harmes. Brittany works with NAMI Kansas, and she does our Justice Involved Persons program. So, Brittany, tell us about that.
Sure thing. So our Justice Involved Person project is a project that is statewide currently. We are in 3 state correctional facilities. So our women's prison and 2 of our men's prison. One is maximum security. The other is minimum. We are also in 4 county jails right now. And basically the aim of our program is to be able to place 2 signature NAMI programs inside of both the jails and the state correctional facilities. The first being NAMI Connection, that mental health support group for people over the age of 18 that is in all 4 jails and all 3 state correctional facilities. And then our peer-to-peer program. So that 8-week educational course where we are teaching persons with lived experience just about recovery, their mental health, things like that. And that is currently operational in 2 of our 3 state correctional facilities with plans for the 3rd one to be up and running. So the overarching goal of this project is to help reduce suicidality, suicidal behavior, suicide attempts, and completed suicides in our correctional facilities, while also tackling things like violence rates in some of our facilities and a little bit of recidivism. So I have peer leaders who facilitate these groups. They are persons with lived experience, and they either have substance use or previous incarceration experience as well. At least 50% of them do. And the reason we staff this way is just because of that relatability factor, right? So if you're sitting in jail or prison, you don't want somebody who's never been to jail or prison or doesn't have a mental health condition or doesn't have previous experience of substance use telling you what you should be doing with your life, right? And so that's kind of the overarching of what I do, and yeah.
That's really awesome. How long has this program been going for?
So we initially got awarded with our first grant cycle, I believe, in 2021. So it really kind of kicked off early 2022. So this is our 2nd full year in operation, and it's been going great, honestly.
Awesome. Where's the direction going? Are we looking at other facilities, or what's that happening there?
Absolutely. So we eventually want to be in every county and every state correctional facility and our federal correctional facilities and mental health state hospitals throughout the state of Kansas. So the baby steps in between that is expand in our jails, gain another correctional facility, dip our toes into maybe state hospitals or hospital-like settings, and then eventually go all the way across the state, get Leavenworth Federal Prison, go into juvenile services, save the whole state, right? That's my overarching goal in the end of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that summary of our programs. Brittany will be doing an interview here with Captain Mark French, who is from Riley County. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be great.
Thank you, Isaac. So, like Isaac said previously, I am Dr. Harmes, and we are speaking with Captain French today from Riley County Jail. So, just starting our conversation out nice and easy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Brittany, my name is Mark French, born and raised in the Manhattan, Kansas area. I have been in law enforcement a little over 30 years, and 7 months ago I got promoted and signed to be the jail commander of the Riley County Jail. So, on a personal level, I like golf. I enjoy the community. I enjoy being involved in a lot of different activities throughout the community.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So just jumping right in, what has your involvement with our Assisted Outpatient Treatment program out in Riley County looked like for you?
So it was about a year and a half probably. Riley County was advised that they'd been awarded a grant, and I sat on the initial committee to set the guidelines for how we would select those that could come into the program. The challenges were kind of surprising in that the way the program is set up, it's a volunteer program, and therefore finding those with severe mental health that would actually cooperate and then finding the limitations to put them in the program was a bigger challenge than we initially thought. So it took quite a few meetings before we settled on what requirements we were looking for that we would allow into the AOT program.
Awesome. Thank you so much for a little bit of that background. I'm going to shift quickly into our Justice Involved Person project. So my specialty, what does that program look like in your facility right now?
So just recently, the program has changed. After meeting with you, we've agreed to double the amount of available time for the inmates and to include females, which is something that we were not doing at the time. The reality of the program is in today's world, a lot of the grants are, falling off, and we lost our mental health grant just recently in the past. And the JIPP has been a great bridge for us to utilize to still provide mental health treatment to our inmates. Some of the challenges that we've looked at through the JIPP is, and you and I have talked, the time and day that we hold those programs. Mm-hmm. They can have an effect on whether the inmates will get up that early or whether they'll opt out. And that does cause some concerns. And that's things we as jail administrators need to be aware of. When we're implementing these programs, we want to give them every chance to succeed and provide that treatment or level of care to the inmates. So that, and I think we need to work better internally at my agency in educating our staff on the benefits of these programs. That's something that as we have a lot of turnover in corrections, and anybody that is involved in corrections knows that's an ongoing issue, that's something we as administrators also need to stay ahead of, is making sure that everybody understands the direction of our programs, what their intent is, and that it's just not another place they're walking an inmate to.
Absolutely. So with all of that being said, do you feel like JIPP is helpful or working inside of your facility in any capacity?
So JIPP provides a broad corrective measure, or that's not even correct. It provides what is needed in a jail for a broad-based starting point for treatment of mental health. And you and I have also talked, one of the challenges of JIPP is a lot of the mental health issues that we deal with in the jail. Inmates are sometimes reluctant in a group setting to have the discussions and therefore get the interaction with the providers that help them. But it does give them that entry level to mental health, may make them more comfortable approaching or going to the next level of getting treatment or being able to talk to people as it relates to their mental health issues.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. What other mental health services do you currently have inside of your jail, if any?
Well, the timing of this podcast couldn't be more dire. We just lost our Stepping Up grant, which we had 40 hours, 20 hours of therapy and 20 hours of caseworker. And during that time, we were able to, in conjunction with the department's co-responder program, provide the level of mental health that was being requested. We weren't able to be proactive, but we were able to be reactive to the request of the inmates. Now, JIPP is currently the only mental health for the general inmate. Now, we do have crisis intervention. We can utilize our co-responder program. So there are some bridges that we can cover, but we are in negotiations right now with our county commission, looking at providing, and the department has approved we are going to be hiring. So if anybody out there listening is interested, we are going to be hiring shortly a program director / caseworker whose job will be to provide limited therapy, but more importantly, coordinate more intense therapy with the contract we have with outside therapy.
That's excellent. Any other programs that you currently run in the jail?
We do. We run restorations. We run multiple faith-based programs. We do mentoring programs through a local nonprofit called Be Able, which is located in Manhattan. And then we GED program. And then we're also looking at partnering with our county health just this morning about some programs involving pre and post pregnancy and care and treatment and therapy related to that. So hopefully we'll start building more relationships with other stakeholders in the community that can provide the resources that are needed in our local jail population.
That's amazing. So what is your biggest challenge running the jail currently?
The biggest challenge. So you gave me these questions ahead of time, and we went through, and we had some really good discussions, actually. It was good for me to talk with all my staff. Everybody will always say budget and finances, and that's kind of a cop-out. I don't know of anybody that just says, man, we have more money and we know what to do with. So, but the reality is staffing, which we have now fixed. We're fully hired.
Amazing.
So we have resolved a lot of the staffing issues. So the challenge now is taking that leap from not running a jail like it was built and designed 25 years ago, where we used discipline for corrective actions, and start instilling not with just our corrections officers, but the inmates that actions have consequences, positive and negative. So positive action. So culture change is really my biggest challenge right now at our facility. Now that our staffing is getting to where it needs to be, budget is always going to be, we work within the confines of, with reason of budget. But the reality is, I think culture change of how we interact and what our end goal is.
Absolutely. I think budget is an issue for any organization running, but especially our corrections. So now that we've talked a little bit about your challenges, what do you do right in your facility, in your opinion?
We don't treat everybody the same, especially as it relates to mental health. I think one of the biggest culture changes, and I'll just give an example. We had an inmate, and when I got down there, the inmate was out of control, causing major disruptions. Tough on the employees, banging on the cells all day, a lot of cleanup. And we knew that the inmate was suffering from a little dementia. So we reached out to a local assisted living center. They brought their staff in and designed an entire plan on things we could do inside of a jail facility, because that's what we had to explain. So the reality is, what we do good is we look at each individual and we deal with them fairly, not equally. And I think that's been it's difficult for some of the older employees to realize that, we have to address the issues as they relate to the individual. So I'd say we're doing much better at that.
That's amazing. That's always really great to hear because a lot of places you don't always see that and you don't find that, whether it be a mental health facility or a correctional facility. So to hear that's what's happening is absolutely amazing. So what are some of the biggest barriers that your residents face as they're releasing?
So the reality is when we release individuals, and there are multiple programs throughout the United States, and there's some really good programs, but I truly believe that the only success of that program is based off of how much buy-in you have from not just your facility, but you have to have stakeholders in the community that are willing to accept inmates upon release and work with programs. Some of the things we're doing right now is we're partnering with employers in the area that will hire people with criminal background. So we're developing training programs. So when they get out of our facility, the first thing we can do is have interviews scheduled for them within, 24 hours of being out of the facility. Secondly, we also know that people need a place to stay. So we've worked with our city courts and we're trying to work with our county courts on the release dates. Releasing somebody on a Saturday is actually setting them up, we believe, for failure. So we need those release dates to happen Monday through Thursday before noon. So we can get them to those facilities and locations where they can get resources to quickly start taking steps to get them on the right track. And if we utilize the time in the jail to give them the training and opportunity and life skills classes and mental health and get them on the medication that they're comfortable with, I think it's a much better chance for success.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's very amazing to hear that because, again, that doesn't always happen for this population in particular. So now I want to ask kind of a loaded question. What, if you could give anybody in jail a piece of advice, what would it be and why?
To some degree, you can set the tone of your life. I can walk through your office here and I can point out 10 things that are negative or complain about. The reality is that's a mindset. And I work with not just the inmates, my employees, people I work with. The reality, my daughters especially, you can train yourself to walk out and look for the positive. It would be easy for me to complete this podcast today, being the first one I've ever done, and think of all the things I did wrong and what I could have done better. But the reality is if I find one or two things I did good and then build on those, that's a mindset change. The other thing I try to implement to people is don't give people the power to affect your emotions. That's with everybody in life. If you're sad or happy because of the actions or words of another person, then you gave that person power over you to have that. And that's something you decide who should have that power. So it's just, if I could, that would fix a lot of the anger issues, the behavioral problems. If people can just find a way to kind of reset on a daily basis, because everybody's going to make mistakes, that would be the one thing I would want them to take leaving.
That's really awesome. And I love that you said that because we try to teach that in connection and peer-to-peer as well throughout our facilities is just take a moment, take it day by day, relax, try to restart. Don't let your emotions overwhelm you. So I appreciate that a lot. So just a couple more questions for you. So what are areas where you feel like your facility could improve?
Well, you got to remember, a lot of the facilities, especially in Kansas, probably around the nation, were designed 20, 30 years ago. There was a different mindset, and honestly, we did not have this large of a mental health issue. We had a lot more hospitals, facilities, and the reality is none of these jails built 20 years ago were designed with the intent to house mental health patients. Unfortunately, I don't know of any jail that is not currently doing that. So they're not designed for it. A prime example is when I told you about having to bring in stakeholders that were experts in dementia, but I really needed them to come to our facility to see what we had to work with. And so if I could change something about our structure, it would be designing more for classification and a separation from, and medical and mental health fall in the same, but how you deal with them, like medical, we will put down in a pod by themselves with cameras, which is fine for a person that's suffering a broken leg and recovering, and they understand while they're there. When you take that same issue, mental health, you're actually sometimes causing more anxiety, more stress. So building the facility to deal with that would be the ultimate. That would be phenomenal.
So what are your plans for the jail within the next 5 years?
So within the next 5 years, we're going to increase medical care and treatment, and that's both mental and physical treatment. Next, we're going to change our culture to making sure, I truly believe we can lower the crime rate in our community, more so through the actions of our jail facility than we can the 30 years I worked, in a car or a detective. The reality is, though, that takes a community buy-in. I tell people all the time, the Riley County Jail is, I don't own the Riley County Jail. I manage it for the citizens of Riley County. And it is important that when people are in our jail, we make sure when they leave, because they're going to get out. 90% of the people in the Riley County Jail will go into the Riley County community. So they're going to be your neighbors in your grocery stores. Our job in the jail, and we are developing it, we will be there well before 5 years, is that people will leave our jail better than when they came in. And that's really the goal, from the person we hired yesterday for the next 5 years. We'll be there well before then.
Amazing. So final question for you. What is your biggest success thus far?
So this one's going to be a little controversy. When I came down to the jail, I was told why we don't do it, because we've always done it. So within the first month or two, we put nicotine into our jail, took a little heat on that. We put MP3 players into our jail. We gave more accessibility to inmates to have access to reading materials. I had inmates in our jail that had been there well over a year and never been outside.
Wow.
So we built an outdoor rec yard. And when I say we, I mean none of this is me. If I don't have buy-in and support from my 4 lieutenants that I know I drive crazy on a daily basis, but the reality is they're the ones that get things done, and they push it down, and the sergeants have to have buy-in. And then ultimately, it will never work if the corrections officers are not, making the program go forward. So I'd say our greatest success has been how we've been able to take so many things, and what that does is that lowers the disciplines with the inmates. It gives them coping ways to deal with their anxiety, and it lowers our discipline tickets, which makes it easier for me to provide staff a place to work where they're not stressed all day. They don't have the anxiety. We've hired some corrections officers from others, and they're quick to point out that they have some of the same inmates they've had before in their other facility, and they cannot believe how much nicer and respectful those inmates are. And I really think it's a testament to the corrections officers at the Riley County Police Department.
I would agree with you. Respect is a two-way street. And from what I've seen with your facility, all of your officers are very respectful. So I will co-sign that idea. Do you have anything else you want to tell our audience about your facility, yourself, your opinions?
Just the reality is there is no one answer. There's a lot of smart people in this world trying to fix it. There's no quick fix to mental health. I truly think individuality in treatments and processes and combining the resources of a community to work as one and not against each other, which means personal egos have to find a place on the side sometimes as people group together to push one mission at a time to accomplishment. It's tough. It's a world where a lot of compromise is going to have to be made between a lot of people in order to start actually solving the problem. If you're in Kansas and you know anything about mental health, we're dead last in the nation. And that's something that those involved in mental health in Kansas, I think, are doing a lot to try to change that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I very much respect you and all of your opinions, and thank you for sharing them with our audience. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Okay. So, like Isaac previously said, I am here with Miss Christa, who is our current resident of Reno County Jail. And the first thing I just want to ask you, Christa, is can you just tell us a little bit about yourself so our audience can get to know you?
Okay, well, I'm 37. I have 5 kids. I live in Hutchinson, currently incarcerated. That's about it right now.
Excellent. Awesome. So I just want to take a quick minute and can we talk about your mental health and your substance abuse history for a second?
Yeah. So I have borderline personality disorder, depression, anxiety, PTSD, and I'm pretty sure a little bit of ADD. Haven't been formally diagnosed with that, but the symptoms are there. Substance abuse. I was addicted to meth for probably 10 plus years. And then in the last year, didn't realize I was addicted to fentanyl. Had no idea. But I did wean myself off of that by myself. So I'm pretty proud of that. I was addicted to cocaine as well. I have a little over 4 years clean off everything. So yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your recovery journey has looked like in regards to your mental health and your substance use?
So my substance abuse, I ended up in 2017, I ended up going to prison for 25 months. And that really changed my life around, that helped me get clean and sober. And I relapsed in 2019 and realized what I was doing. It took me about a month, 2 weeks to a month to realize what I was doing wrong. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing this. And I got myself, I stopped using. And so that's how I got to be over 4 years sober. Mental health, I'd gotten mental health treatment while I was in prison, but stopped taking it due to, I was like, I'm good. I don't need meds. I feel fine, But I got with my ex-husband and all of everything that I had built up came back out. And so I went back and got put on medication and here I'm not on the meds that I was on out there, but they seem to be doing a lot of help. I mean, to the, as much as they can anyways.
Awesome. So you already kind of mentioned you went to prison in 2017. So let's talk about that. Let's start with how did you get to prison?
Okay. I got distribution, like 3 distributions of meth, possession of meth. And the reason why they sent me to prison is they thought I could benefit from the programs that they had to offer. That was the crazy thing. The judge literally said, I think you could benefit from the programs. And sure enough, I benefited from the programs.
So what programs did you take in there?
The biggest one that I took in there that helped me change my life around was SARP. And that's the Substance Abuse Reintegration Program. And that helps you go through everything in your life, from your mental state to what you've been keeping deep down, meditations, just anything and everything that could do with your life. It helps. And I really, really strongly suggest anybody who goes to prison to take that program.
That's amazing. So let's switch into why are you in jail currently?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Right now, while in jail, I have distribution of a controlled substance causing great bodily harm, unlawful distribution of a controlled substance using a communication device. I have 3 of those. Distribution of a controlled substance causing death, and conspiracy distribution of a controlled substance causing death.
So for people who don't know what those charges mean, can you explain it to our audience in layman's terms?
Pretty much, I'm being charged with murder. That's the best way to put it. I'm being charged with murder for somebody getting sold pills or getting sold fentanyl pills and it killed them.
And I know we have talked quite extensively about this, but can you tell me the actions that led up to these charges and how you're currently dealing and feeling about them?
I was helping out my niece who I trusted. She came and stayed in my house, and because she wanted to get sober. So I'm like, all right, I'm all for that, and, WME got back in that old mentality state because she's like, I've got pills for sale. So, I was like, all right, let's, I know somebody. But the thing is that she didn't tell me that they were fentanyl. She told me that they were real Percocets. And that's, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for that. But I let her use my car, and she went and sold him pills, and he overdosed the next day. Had I not let her use my car, I would not be sitting in jail right now. Mm-hmm. So now I'm facing at least 15 years. Hopefully not. We're really working on getting me something better. Mm-hmm. But, it's just, that's not worth it. It's not. Drugs of any kind are not worth it.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's really hard. And the next question I have for you is even harder. How do you feel when people judge you for what you have been convicted of and what you're currently charged with without knowing you?
I don't know. Since I've been in here, I don't really get a lot of judgment. I mean, I don't know about out there. I haven't heard anything except for when I first got in here that people were making comments, because I had a Jelly Roll t-shirt on. They're like, Jelly Roll doesn't have fans like that. And, but it's just, let people tell their story, because it's not all it's cracked up to be, because there could be a whole lot more to it than what meets the eye. Like, give everybody the benefit of a doubt.
Exactly. So even a little bit more in depth about this, can you tell us what it is like trying to deal with pending charges while incarcerated?
Oh God, it's hard. I've been sitting in here 9 months, and it's just been a waiting game. Literally, I'm just sitting. It's waiver status after waiver status and not knowing anything. I mean, my first plea offer was 184 months, second-degree reckless murder, and I'm not doing it. I wasn't around, I'm not taking a murder charge. I refuse. Mm-hmm. So, I guess I have to sit in here, and I mean, honestly, I'd rather be sitting in prison right now. This is doing hard time. Sitting in jail is doing hard time.
So can you explain that to our audience who's not familiar with the justice system? What do you mean when you say jail is hard time and you would rather be in prison?
So in here, you are in a room with, there's 10 cells. You can hold up to 20 people. You see those same 20 people every day of your life. You have one TV, one kiosk, 2 phones, and you don't get to leave except for to go to programs. You got to deal with noise level, people bullying other people. It gets out of control. Like you eat the same food every day. It's not fun. I mean, there's nothing to do. You get to go to the library once a week. And I mean, that's about, if it wasn't for library, I'd probably go crazy because at least I have something to read. But yeah, you have to deal with those same people every single day. And and the food here is not that great. It is not great. I don't recommend it.
So what would you say to people who would hear that and say, well, you did it to yourself and you deserve it?
I did do this to myself because I trusted the wrong people. But, I'm going to make the most out of it because, whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come out this on top, whether I go back to prison or not, I'm still going to be okay. Ain't nobody going to tear me down from this.
Absolutely. I love your attitude about this. Let's switch to something. What is the biggest lesson that you have learned throughout the duration of your incarcerations?
Don't trust everybody. not everybody is your friend. Not everybody can be trusted, even family.
Mm-hmm. Can you expand a little bit on that for those people who just aren't familiar?
So I have a problem with helping other people out, no matter what it is, a place to live, whatever the case may be. And that's how I ended up in this mess. I let I call her my niece. She's not really, but I was with her uncle for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, I let her move in my house, and that's what started all this. I've let multiple friends come live with me, and then them just, not help out like they're supposed to. So I'm done helping people out. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially letting people live with me. Definitely not
good choice. So let's talk about, what's the worst experience you've had with being involved in the criminal justice system?
I don't know. I really don't have any like horrible experiences.
That's good.
We've had, an argument happen and everybody was locked down for a whole day, but that was probably the worst experience, but it was kind of nice because it was quiet. So I kind of enjoyed it. I got to read a book and, relax, and it was quiet.
Oh, that really a little bit of peace for a few minutes. Okay, so then what's been your best experience?
Some of the people I've met in here. And the programs that they have in here, they didn't have a lot of those when I came in here 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. So like the programs in here are absolutely amazing. And, and it sucks that, there's girls that just sit back in the pod and it's like, they don't want to change their life around. They don't bother taking programs, mm-hmm. But I want anything I can to help better myself, because I feel like maybe I missed something the last time I was here, and I'm just going to do it. I want to take every advantage that could benefit me and better me in the long run.
Absolutely. So would you say that programs play a fairly decent size of helping you through being incarcerated and just changing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's get a little specific and talk about the NAMI group. So our Justice Involved Person Project. Can you tell me what your experience with that has been?
It's been absolutely amazing. Like, it's cool to have a mental health group, like that you can talk about, anything and everything. Like, that's one of the groups I look forward to every other week. Like, honestly, that is one of the groups I look forward to because we get to go in there and it's a safe place. And we all, pretty much almost everybody has the same diagnosis. It's crazy. I didn't know that there were so many people with so many diagnoses of the same thing. Mm-hmm. And we get to talk about life and, what's going on in our lives. And it's wonderful. I definitely don't want to ever lose that program.
That is so lovely to hear, truthfully. Just for the simple fact that, we're always trying to gauge if a program is working and if it's being effective for what we want it to do, right? And so having feedback like that from not only you, but, our groups across the state is very helpful because not only does it let us keep doing what we're doing, but adjust if we need to, right? So I always love hearing that. What's jail like?
Jail sucks. Just gonna put that out there. It's like with what I was saying. We have a cell that has 10 rooms in it, and it's got 2 showers. You have to push a shower. You either get really hot water or you get really cold water, and you get a TV that you all have to share. And usually somebody tries to run in the pod. We got one of those right now.
Yay!
It's wonderful. And you get one kiosk, and so you kind of have to during visits, you got to alternate. You got to make sure you let everybody know that you have a visit on this day. So that way somebody else doesn't be like, yeah, you can come. And then, mm-hmm. See who gets here first. It's just, it's horrible. It really is. It's horrible.
So how do you mitigate your relationships while you are incarcerated?
Through the phone. I have a boyfriend that he's been through this whole thing with me, and it's been wonderful. We talk on the phone every day. He has to have a 15-minute phone conversation with me every day. I run out of things to say to him. I'm like, I don't know what to talk to you about. Like, nothing changes in my life. I'm doing the same thing every day,
Mm-hmm.
And so I try, mostly phone calls, because he's about the only one who comes up to visit me, and that's okay. Talk to my mom on the phone, I try to keep in contact with everybody that's important in my life, and they, I have such a strong support system. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So let's finish this up with just a couple questions surrounding kind of a little bit broader when we're talking about the criminal justice system. So do you think there are adequate mental health services in jails and prisons within the state of Kansas?
Here I feel like there is in the prisons, like especially the prisons, they're pretty good about taking care of people's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a lot better than jail. It takes a long time to get your mental health taken care of in here. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some people come in here that really need their mental health checked, mm-hmm. and they really need help, and they're not getting that help that they need. Mm-hmm. But in prison, it's absolutely wonderful. That's one of the first things that they take care of when you get in there is your mental mm-hmm. health. And that's absolutely amazing, because I don't know what I'd do without my meds. I would be crazy.
And that's the treatment plan that works for you, right? I know that there are oftentimes really long wait lists for inside of the jail, right? Even facilitating programs inside of there, you have someone come in and 8 weeks later they're leaving and never got seen because there's not enough time, resources, or staff members.
Exactly. Somebody told me that if they had to be here a year before they would even be seen. And I'm like, that is nuts, because not everybody knows if they're going to be here that long. I'm going to be here that long, but they got me in right away, which was weird. I wasn't expecting that, mm-hmm. But from what I understand, they're backed up until May.
Wow.
So,
and unfortunately that's common across our states, right? Just because there's not enough staff or money to be able to attend everybody who needs mental health services, right? We're looking at 87% of a jail population who probably is dealing with some form of mental health or substance use disorder, if not both.
Yeah.
So last question for you. Do you think the criminal justice system is fair?
No.
Why not?
Because I feel like they do whatever they want. They don't bother, checking all the facts or getting all of the evidence. They just make their assumptions and then base it on that. Honestly, like the way they word new laws, the way they just handle certain situations is completely messed up. And I really feel like they really need to work on that a lot better than they do, because they're just sending anybody and everybody to prison. They don't care. And so the prisons get full, and then what are they supposed to do? Like, it's absolutely insane. Thank you. Eyeball will not stop watering. But yeah, it's ridiculous. I really feel like there should be more to this justice system. Like, they should really look at all the evidence. Like, I've looked at my evidence, and it's definitely nothing like they're making me out to be, mm-hmm. which really upsets me. Like, what are you guys seeing that I'm not seeing? Mm-hmm. And I really feel like they really need to work on that for everybody.
Absolutely. I think that's a sentiment that is rung throughout every facility that we are in, and anybody who's caught up in it, right? You guys are prejudged more often than not. And so I know I greatly appreciate you sharing your side of everything, because it's very easy if people don't know who you are. So for audience, full disclosure, I do know Christa. I knew her story before we asked her to come on the podcast. However, not a lot of people do know your story, and seeing your charges are scary, because like you said, they are essentially murder charges.
Yeah.
And that is really scary, but you're not a scary person. And you are a person that you would look at and be like, oh yeah, murder charges. That makes sense. And so I think that one of the biggest things that you hit on in this interview is, not being judged immediately just based off of what you've done, what you look like, where you're at. And I think if I want anything, our audience to take away from this is definitely that, because you are not what you are on paper and you are not what you are charged or convicted with. So
thank you.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you sharing your experiences and being willing to share them with our audience to kind of shed some more light into what it's like to actually be a part of the justice system and go through all of this chaos.
Well, thank you for allowing me to do this. It was really exciting. I was really excited to do this. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
And that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining us in this conversation. One more thing before we go. Our annual fundraising event, NAMI Walks, is next month on May 18th. The actual in-person event will be happening at Westridge Mall in Topeka. Obviously, that's a far drive for a lot of people. So if you're not able to make it, that's totally okay. Just go to namiwalks.org/Kansas. And on that website, you can register a team, you can raise money, or you can donate to an already existing team. Regardless of how you are able to participate, we hope to either see you there or just see you promoting mental health awareness in Kansas. So once again, thank you. I'm Isaac, and I am NAMI Kansas.
I am NAMI Kansas.